Hi, I'm Isabella and welcome to my channel. Right now it is in the middle of May and I live in southern Ontario, Canada, which means that the weather is absolutely wacky. It is crazy right now. Literally just like 2 hours ago it was sunny and it was beautiful and it was hot, and now it is absolutely raining cats and dogs. And if it was actually raining cats and dogs though, I'd be much happier about it, but it's not. It's just sticky and humid and gross. But I like to romanticize it anyway, and so I came up with a selection of books that I personally like reading on days like this. I chose some books that I thought were cozy and sweet and also kind of melancholic, you know, something where you can ponder. Anyway, here are the books that I think that you might like on a nice rainy day if you want to just get cozy and comfortable and not get too invested in a book, because what if it's like sunny tomorrow and then now you're not in that mood anymore? You don't want that to happen. So here are some books. I would like to start off this video by introducing you to the book that I'm currently reading right now on this dark and gloomy day, which is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I hope that's how you pronounce her name. Now, I read this book all the way back in high school and I don't really remember anything that happened like at all. Like, I don't even remember the characters' names, but I do remember that it was gloomy and it felt like I was like reading a secret. So this book is about this girl. I believe she's about 16 and she comes from a family of psychics and mediums, and she was given a prophecy where she was told that if she ever kisses her true love, they would die. And now the 16-year-old girl, her name is Blue, she's left with this conundrum because there just happens to be a boys' school nearby, and like 4 different guys who she eventually becomes friends with go there. And now it's getting kind of tricky because what if she does fall in love? What will happen? But I really like this book because it's set in like a small town. It's not like super intense fantasy or anything like that, but it's its own magical world. I remember reading this and I thought that it was amazing. And I know that this is also a very popular book from back in the day, so I'm sure that you've probably read this before, or at least you must have heard of this. And if you haven't, then you should definitely get on it because I remember it being absolutely amazing. Other people think that it's absolutely amazing, and it just has some great vibes for a rainy day. The second book that I would like to recommend is Unaccustomed Earth by Jhumpa Lahiri. And I adore this book. It's actually a collection of short stories that are all based around Bengali Indian American families. And it's usually about the family conflicts and dynamics between the American children of immigrant parents. And I like this book a lot. Maybe personally, like, I relate to it because I'm also Indian and I'm Indian Canadian, so I can understand where a lot of these like cultural dynamics come from. But I thought that it was very short and sweet. And again, like, I like books where it feels like you're kind of like looking into somebody's secret, and that's what this felt like. It definitely explores the emotional world of these characters and these families, and I feel like even if you're not of this culture, you can still relate to it. They explore the thoughts and feelings of all these different characters and all these different situations, and looks at culture and love and tradition and individuality and also collectivism, and there's just a lot going on, and I just think that it's just so beautiful, and I love the way that Jhumpa Lahiri writes. She is just a fantastic writer, and it's a fairly short book too here, as you can see. The third book that I would like to recommend is After Dark by Haruki Murakami. I love this book. I love this book so much, and this book is about a 19-year-old girl, and it starts off with her just like hanging out in a Denny's at midnight, I think, and then this dude comes in and he's like, "I know your sister," and she's like, "Huh?" Like, it's just like a really random encounter, and then somehow that spirals into her just exploring late night Tokyo. Like, she's going around meeting all these different interesting characters and trying to learn a bit more about herself and trying to understand her relationship with her sister. And I love books like this where it's just like, you know, it's like the most unusual things just happen. It's just so surreal because it's happening between the hours of midnight and dawn, where things just don't really make a lot of sense. And obviously, if you're familiar with Murakami, you will know that that is totally his thing. Like, he loves just not making any sense, but it does make sense in a way, you know? It's just completely surreal all the time. I liked the main character a lot, and I know there's a lot of criticism about how he writes women, and which is all very valid, but Personally, I actually kind of liked the way that he wrote the main character of this book. The fourth book that I would like to recommend is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. And so this is actually a series of about 10 letters that Rilke wrote to a younger, more amateur poet who wanted his advice on his verses. But Rilke just ends up giving him like so much life advice, like just a lot of life advice. And I actually picked up this book at a time when I was just devastated by the world. Like I just felt like everything was over, and reading it gave me a perspective of what it means to really be there for yourself, what it means to be there when you're at your most vulnerable and at the bottom, and how you can view yourself and life in a different way. And this felt like soup for the soul. It definitely felt like that. Like I felt like the warmth of Rilke. And also I thought that was really interesting when I was reading it, because there's like a part of like one of his letters where he basically says women are people. And I was like, wait, this man was born in the 1800s and he thought women were people? Like, I know the bar is like below the ground, but I thought that was like interesting because I thought like the collective just totally did not believe that. So it was really cool to see like a very like influential writer just say that, where he acknowledges women as full human beings and talks about how everyone, you know, everyone should have a bit of the feminine and the masculine inside themselves, and at the end of the day, like, you should strive to become a human and not so much the gender that society pressures you into. And that wasn't like the entire book, but that was a very small part of it, and I thought that was like very, very intriguing. And so now I'm kind of interested in reading more of Rilke's work, where he talks more about women and writes more about them, because I'm actually very interested. Because it's kind of hard to come across a book written by men back in the 1800s or the 1900s, and even now where like misogyny isn't absolutely like infused into their writing. But I thought Rilke actually had a very like mature and like open-minded understanding of the world. So I actually felt like reading this was of value. And it's very short, very small, and I feel like it's super helpful when you want to ponder more about your soul and your place in the world and about yourself. Super deep. The next book that I'd like to recommend, I don't remember what number we're on, is The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. This too is a very lighthearted and short book about a kid who is graduating high school. What I liked about this book is that it also has like a hint of magical realism, which is that I think the tagline of the book is, "What if you aren't the chosen one?" And it's pretty cool because this main character, he's like pretty normal, but he lives amongst other students who aren't normal. Like, they're the ones with all the magical powers, they're the ones who are like the heroes, and they have to save the world, but him and his friends are just like hanging out and chilling and just worrying about their own little personal lives, like, oh, does the girl I like me back? And I just think it's like so funny. Again, it's set in a small town, and it feels like a very intimate look of friendships and romance and relationships, and asking yourself the question, like, maybe life, like ordinary life, is actually kind of good. It is a YA novel, so maybe you're not really into that, but for me, I love reading stuff like this. And the last book I'd like to recommend is Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. Now, this was a very, 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 very popular book. I think maybe like 10 years ago or so. I remember this being super big in high school, and I read it back when I was in high school. And this, I think, might actually be like the perfect rainy day book. It is a little bit bigger though, she's pretty thick. However, it is very sweet and very cozy and very romancy. And I'm not even a huge fan of romance novels. I don't really read any. However, this one, it like really, 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 really got to me. It's so good. It's about this girl, and she's in her last year of high school in Atlanta, I think, somewhere in the US, and she's having a blast. She's having a good time, and then her parents force her to go to this boarding school for international students, I think, in Paris. And she's like, at first she's like, I don't want to go there. What am I supposed to do in Paris? And then she gets there, and then she meets a boy, and they may or may not fall in love. Obviously, it's a huge mystery. I like this book because I think it's very cozy. I like the atmosphere. I just thought that it was sweet. It just made me feel butterflies, and I usually don't really feel that way when I read romance books. But maybe I just haven't read enough romance books. I'm so down to get recommendations, actually. But anyway, those are my recommendations for some cozy, short, sweet reads on a rainy, gloomy day. I'm not sure what kind of book you really need on days like this, but these are the ones that I would choose because I think that they are pretty spectacular. Well, thank you for watching this video and for going through all of my favorite rainy day books with me. I'll see you next time. Bye!